Well, good morning, everybody. Hello, and thanks for joining our webinar this morning. My name is Jeremy Whittingham, and I'm the head of content for Advanced Engineering. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the first in our planned series of webinars that we're hosting at Advanced Engineering. And we're calling them Advanced Engineering Talks, or AE Talks for short. Today's inaugural webinar is also co-hosted and brought to you by the IET, the Institution of Engineering and Technology. And as I'm sure you know, and hopefully you're in the right webinar, today's webinar is entitled Future-Proof Your Career, the Path to Becoming a Chartered Engineer. Just to say before we carry on, these Advanced Engineering Talk webinar series, obviously we're going to continue after this one with several. So I hope you stay tuned for other announcements of time, subjects, and some of the great speakers that we'll have on board. And, you know, it's all about advanced engineering with these virtual meetings to help you and the community and the industry in general stay in touch during these, frankly, challenging times, of course. So look out for information that we'll send about issues like digital twins, AI on the edge, and other interesting topics from organizations joining us like the KTN and many others that we'll have with some innovative companies and individuals involved as well. But we'll keep you involved in that. And don't forget, we are actually open to any comments or suggestions on subject areas that you might like us to cover. So please do get in touch with those ideas. Just to confirm, the IET and ENT Engineering and Technology magazine are headline supporters. And they will be involved in speaking at the live edition of Advanced Engineering, which will be happening and scheduled on the 4th and 5th of November at the NEC. So in conjunction with the NEC and government guidelines, it's important that I say that we'll be doing everything necessary to ensure this event is run safely, securely, and successfully in November. And we'll have all the measures in place, which we will keep you updated about as we approach the event. Just to introduce you to the session now in a bit more detail, today's session. It's an introduction to professional registration with the IET, and it'll cover membership and membership benefits. There'll be an introduction to professional registration and the UK spec working towards becoming a chartered engineer, and importantly, a walkthrough guide on the application process, along with further support that might be available. It's everything you need to know, basically, to make a start on your professional registration application, or, very importantly, actually, to begin professionalizing your engineering workforce. I think that's going to become more and more important as we go ahead with the needs to upskill. So I think it's going to be a really important webinar in that respect. Now on to our speakers. We have online with us two great speakers from the IET itself, ready to guide you through the path. Firstly, in a slight change to our original build speaker, we have Fiona Harvie, Regional Development Manager for Scotland and Ireland for the IET. And Fiona tells me she has enjoyed working with the IET now for 7 years. Which is great to hear that you're enjoying it, Fiona. So welcome. We're looking forward to hearing from you in a moment. And we also have Adam Parnell, following on from Fiona, who is Professional Registration Account Manager, also at the IET. Adam joined in 2015 as Regional Development Manager, and after a short intermission working at the CBI, Adam took over his current role as Professional Registration Account Manager. Adam lives in Sheffield and is currently with his currently pregnant wife. Congratulations, Adam, and 4-year-old daughter. I'm just going to go, before we start and before I introduce, a couple of housekeeping issues. And while I'm actually giving you those, I'm just going to put this screen up here. Hopefully you can see that. which just introduces our speakers, gives you a little bit of information that this webinar obviously is live now and will be on demand on our Advanced Engineering website. And note the register to join the IET link at the bottom there, which would be a first step in getting involved with your application. Just those housekeeping issues now. There is a chat function, which should be to the right on your screen, where you can post general questions and comments, of course. It's open and visible to all. We plan to select questions in a roundup at the end anyway, but the speakers can see obviously what you're putting up. So they may well address them there and then during their presentation as appropriate. It's quite fluid in that respect. Also, if you can keep your machines on mute, there tends to be a ping that may come up on your computer when a comment goes up. You've probably already heard some of those anyway. So I think that pretty much finishes my opening remarks. So I'm going to now introduce Fiona. I'm delighted to introduce her, Fiona Harvie, Regional Development Manager for Scotland and Ireland, the IET. Fiona, over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Jeremy. As Jeremy said, my name is Fiona Harvie. I cover the whole region of Scotland and Ireland for the IET. And generally, my job role is to speak to as many engineers as possible and help them with professional registration, answering any questions about it, really giving any tips with regards to application, and really helping divert them to wherever it is they need to be. So that's generally what I would do for the IET. We're just going to get on with it, really. We'll get straight on to membership and we'll have a chat about that, and then I'll pass across to Adam, and Adam can tell you more about the ins and outs of Career Manager and more about professional registration itself. So if we can just go on to the next slide, we'll get going with it.
Ooh, sorry about that.
That's okay, not a problem. The IET is the largest of the engineering institutes that assess and award for professional registration. We have about 170,000 members in over 150 countries. We also have volunteers in these countries, which can help you if you are applying from abroad or working abroad. So you really want to make contact with networks that can actually help you with any questions that you have about the IET. Our volunteers also assess and interview for professional registration. So if you know anybody, or most of them assess and award, if you know anybody that does actually volunteer for the IET, whether it be for STEM, going into universities or schools, or whether they are actually assessors or interviewers, definitely make contact with them. They love speaking about engineering. They really do live for the IET, and they will be delighted for you to make contact with them and have a conversation about that. Now, just going on to membership itself, there's obviously lots of different membership areas that you can apply for. There are more details of that on the IET website. So if you click onto the IET, there's lots of information about specifically what membership area you should apply for. However, if you're not a member at the moment, the first thing I would advise everybody to do is get that membership up and running if you are actually thinking about application in the future. There's lots of support from your membership that you can get. Adam has very kindly put the link for membership in the chat box there, so definitely click on that and get going with it. Once you actually become a member of the IET, you will find that you will get E&T magazine through the door every month. Now, if you're finding that the physical copy coming through, they're building up quite quickly, you can actually log on to the IET website and change that to a downloadable version within your IET profile, so you can bespoke that to how you want it to come through to you. It's a fantastic publication, loads of really interesting topics and subjects. It does actually go towards half an hour of your continued professional development that the IET will ask you to do 30 hours a year of, or once you become professionally registered. So it's definitely worthwhile getting involved and reading it and making sure you're getting into the habit of that. As I said, it is half an hour a month of that CPD. Now, moving on to additional support that we can give you with regards to volunteers and members, we do actually put on a lot of, obviously our volunteer community is vast. They put on a lot of presentations. They would love it if you were able to attend these. We have over 150,000 attendees per annum at the moment, so there's lots of opportunity for you to network with other engineers if you actually are able to physically turn up to these events. We have lots of different topics, lots of different technical topics. All you have to do is have a look on the IT website again under the community section, and they will keep you fully informed of what's going on in your area. Now, the pandemic has obviously affected these physical seminars and talks, so we have a load of them already uploaded onto the IET TV, which is also accessible on the IET website. So there's loads to keep you busy there. Again, these types of talks and seminars do go towards your CPD. If you watch them on IET TV, they actually do go towards your CPD on that. We will ask you for a bit of reflection on there. But a lot of our engineers that work remotely, or they're maybe in other countries, find it really beneficial to be able to access things that are going on in the UK, which we are able to film and upload onto there for you. So there's definitely lots of information there for you to be getting on with. Now, over and above all of that, the IET actually have one of the largest libraries for engineering based down at our Stevenage branch, which you have full access to as a member. You can ask for technical papers, e-journals, books. There's about 5 knowledge packs that you can access a year as a member for the IET. You get lots of discounts on specific publications which we actually publish, and we are able to invite you to request for books and journals to be posted out to you, and you can return them when you're ready with them. Now, again, digital age, we are able to do that as downloadable versions also. So if there are any that you're interested in that you want to download to your Apple or your Android device, there is about 10,000 of them available that you can actually download as well. So there's lots and lots of information there. Now, the IET have 2 main sites at Birmingham and Savoy Place in London. As members, you are invited to come in and use these facilities. You will not be charged to use them. We have just done a £30 million refurbishment at our Savoy Place building. It's absolutely stunning. It's it's an absolutely beautiful building to visit. Over and above that, there are lots of really interesting engineers working from there. They go in and they set up their free Wi-Fi. They have their free tea and coffee. So there's loads of interesting people for you to network with, get involved with. And obviously, with regards to our events, we put on loads and loads of seminars and talks, all very interesting individuals, new up and coming technology, which you may be interested in. Again, if you do get invited to these seminars, definitely take the opportunity to go. It is something special. And you will have the opportunity to use our bar and rooftop terrace. Unfortunately, you don't get free beers and free food. Unfortunately, you have to pay for that, but you can actually go up to our rooftop terrace, which is right next door to the Savoy. It looks out onto the London Eye, and it really is a stunning view from Westminster right down to the Tower of London. So it really is something special. Now, the IPD-Assessing award on 3 main areas, which is obviously CEng, iEng, EngTech and ICT Tech. Now, Adam will be able to talk you through these areas and give you some further information with regards to Career Manager. If you have any questions, please ask as we go, or we will be answering questions at the end. So I'll pass over to Adam and he can tell you a bit more about these topics.
Thanks a lot for that, Fiona. I think I was flicking through the slides there as Fiona was talking because Fiona was unable to share screen. So I do apologise if the timing on some of those slides was a little bit off. I know there's one at the end here that I just missed, and this is all about great reasons why you should become professionally registered. And I'm not going to go through all the great reasons on here, but my favourite one is all about money. Obviously. And as of the start of this year, professionally registered engineers earned on average £11,500 a year more than their non-registered counterparts. So if you've got no other reason than that, then that's a great reason to go for it. But obviously there are lots of other great reasons as well. So it's my job to talk you through some of the more kind of complexities around professional registration, the support that's available, and the application process itself. If this is something that you've never really come across before, it can be quite daunting and a little bit confusing as to how you go through this process. So in a very, very short amount of time, I'm going to try and give you lots and lots of information about that. I've been seeing lots of questions come through, some quite technical questions as well. I've shared my email address in the chat feed. So if you do have quite a technical question, may I request that you send it direct to my email address, and I'll try and get through them all and answer them all today if it's not answered already in the slides. So as Fiona said, we exist to do a lot in terms of kind of inspiring, informing and influencing engineers, but we're licensed by the Engineering Council to assess these 4 main levels of professional registration. Now, when you decide to become registered, you're going to be assessed against 5 key areas, 5 key kind of topics, and these are all part of the UK spec, so a document that's written by the Engineering Council. And it's a very broad set of competencies. And what the Engineering Council are effectively saying is, if you want to become registered, you need to demonstrate that you have each and every one of these competencies. So they write a book with all these in. It's about 46 pages long, and it's very dry reading. It's great if you're having difficulty getting to sleep. So what we've done is we've condensed that to 6 pages. So there's a 6-page document for the CEng UK spec and for the IEng, etc. I've just posted the links to the PDFs on the chat box there if you want to download them. That's a great place to start if you're considering becoming professionally registered. And as I say, it's just a list of 17 competencies. So just to walk you through these different areas, Section A is all about what you know about engineering, and Section B is about your experience within engineering. So this is not just about knowledge. It's not a qualification that you can go to university and walk out the doors with the certificate. You actually have to have experience in industry to be able to do this. Part C is all about commercial skills, and D is communication skills, and E is all about ethics. So D and E are the easy ones. If you can communicate and you're an ethical person, you're working safely, then which obviously we all do, then you can sail through those ones. I did notice that we've got a few people in the audience who are from an academic background. And of course, you can absolutely become professionally registered using your experience from within academia. So when we say kind of commercial skills or experience in industry, obviously we include academia as well in that. So Section A can be a little bit confusing because there are 2 ways to us that you can demonstrate that you have the knowledge required to become professionally registered. And one of those ways is through what we call exemplifying qualifications. These are qualifications that aren't mandatory, but if you have them, they will automatically demonstrate that you have the underpinning knowledge that we're looking for. So just to walk you through what these are, Eng Tech and ICT Tech, it's merely a level 3 qualification or higher within that particular field. For incorporated engineer, we're looking at an accredited bachelor's degree in engineering or technology. And for chartered engineer, it's an accredited bachelor's plus accredited master's or an accredited MEng. Now, the key word there is that word accredited. So what we mean by that is that one of the 35 engineering institutions, it doesn't necessarily have to be us, has assessed the content within that course and said, yes, this delivers enough knowledge to be registered to this level. Now, some of you out there might have a degree or a master's degree on MEng and be thinking, well, I've no idea whether it was accredited or not. Don't panic, I'm a step ahead of you. I've just put a link on the screen there that will allow you to search your course and the establishment and the years that you studied, and it will tell you exactly whether it was accredited or not. So if you're not sure, you can find out there. Now, I did say there are 2 ways you can demonstrate this knowledge, and this is one way. What might surprise you is that 68% of our applicants don't have these qualifications. So many successful chartered engineers don't have an MEng or a master's degree or even a bachelor's degree. Some of them will literally be people who've developed and built that knowledge in the workplace over the course of their career. So what those people do is, instead of highlighting academic qualifications in their application, they're going to focus on work-based learning. So we'll look at the application process very shortly. I'm going to show you how to do this through both ways very shortly. So I'm going to look at each of the different levels of professional registration and just give you a very brief idea of what it is we're looking for in each of these. So for CEng, the main thing that we're looking for is all around innovation. It's around that top statement there that says develop new or existing technology. Now, this doesn't mean you necessarily have to have invented some new technology that's changed the world or patented something or anything like that. It can be really simple. It might be just looking at the status quo within your organization and thinking we can do this better, we can improve it. It might be changing a process, changing ingredients, changing timings, something along those lines, something really simple, but being able to have that idea. And it's not just about having a light bulb moment, but you also need to be able to implement that idea. So you need to be able to kind of follow through and design and test and plan and do what you guys do and make that idea become a reality. Now, for incorporated engineer, the main thing that we're looking for is, again, it's around innovation, but you don't necessarily have to be responsible for that innovation. It's more likely you're involved in that process. So to put this into context, your chartered engineer might be sat there one day and have a light bulb moment and think, we can do that better. And they go across the hall and they knock on the door to the incorporated engineer and they say, I've had this idea, will you help me to implement it? And then the two of them work together to implement that improvement. But it's the chartered engineer who's responsible. The incorporated engineer is involved in that process. Now, the question we get asked the most about these two levels in particular is, how many years experience do I need before I can become CEng or IEng? And it's a very, very difficult question to answer because everybody's experience is very, very different. But just to give you a very rough guide, if you have those exemplifying qualifications that we mentioned earlier, then you're probably on the fastest possible route. So for chartered engineer, what we look for is an average minimum of about 4 to 6 years experience in industry. So that's 426, not 46, in case my accent is confusing anybody. For incorporated engineer, it's more like 2 to 3 years experience in industry. Now, that is a rough guide. Some people do it quicker. There's a tool that I'm going to show you that's designed to speed that journey up. And using that tool, I've seen candidates come fresh out of university and become chartered within 3 years, which is an extremely quick time to achieve that. So I'm going to run you through that very shortly. Some people take much longer. It all depends on the individual's journey. So for engineering technician and ICT technician, we're really just looking for that level 3 qualification or above, or if you don't have that, it's all about at least having a year or two's experience in a technician role within that particular field. So these are very much entry levels into the engineering professional registrations. So what we like to do is offer as much support as we can for anybody who's interested in becoming professionally registered. And something that's become very, very popular are our company-based registration support programs. So these are programs that we often run within a business. So many of you will have other colleagues that are interested in pursuing professional registration at the same time. And what we do is we run a 14-week program where we give you all the information and the tools you need to go through the assessment process. And then we have our professional registration advisors sit with you one-on-one and they review the information you've put in your application form. And they're literally going to say to you, is this application going to be successful or not? And if not, why not? And what do you need to do to make it successful? So that's a really key part of the process. So obviously you can get that support through our company-based registration schemes. And if you're interested in running one of these schemes, please do let us know. And, you know, we'll be happy to set that up for you. If you're thinking more of just supporting yourself and you want individual support, I've just shared a link on the screen that enables you to access those PRAs to get that feedback on your application form. And our team's contact details are going to be on this slide deck, so you can always contact us for support as well as you go. So Career Manager then. Career Manager is the platform on which we actually manage the application process for professional registration. And there are some great tools on there, like I mentioned earlier, designed to speed up that application journey as well, or your journey towards becoming ready to apply for registration, I should say. So I'm going to walk you through Career Manager. Now, I do want to point out that this version 3, is a little bit dated. It's been out for a few years now. We've got a brand new version coming out in September, so it'll all be shiny and new. But I'm going to walk you through the version we do have. So to access Career Manager, one thing you will need to do is create an account on our website. So you'll need to look for this little login, and you'll need to register an account on there. You can register as a non-member. So if you click no, I'm not a member of the IET, you can still access Career Manager. You can still get started on your application form, but you will need to become a member before you hit submit. So just remember that join link that we put on the checkboard earlier. Once you've done that, you're just looking for the Career Manager logo on our website. There are lots of documents on how to use Career Manager, but you're all going to be experts in about 15 minutes, so you can forget about those and go straight to Access IET Career Manager. That's going to bring you in here. So on the Career Manager homepage, on the right-hand side, there's a little box that says Quick Launch Tools. And there are 3 main things you're going to use Career Manager for, and they're all in here. So they are initial professional development, or IPD. This is all about guiding your journey through gaining these competencies, gaining these experience, and becoming ready to apply for professional registration. So I'm going to walk you through that. And then, of course, obviously, you're going to write your application for professional registration here on Career Manager. And it's worth being aware that when you become registered, you then have a commitment or an obligation to do 30 hours of CPD, continued professional development, each year. Now, 30 hours might sound like a lot. It really isn't. Most engineers on average do about 120 hours of CPD per year without even realizing they're doing it. So it's just a case of getting into a habit of recording that CPD, and you can do that here on Career Manager as well. So I want to talk to you about this IPD tool first, because this is an excellent tool, not only for developing your own competence as an engineer, but also for developing other engineers that might be working for you. So if you're a manager of others, this is a great tool to ensure that you're developing your team in a really well-rounded way. Remember, those engineering UK spec competencies are a really broad set of competencies. So if you're focusing on each and every one of them with your team, you know you're going to have a very broad set of skills within your team. So to access the IPD tool, all you need to do is, again, on the home page, click on the IPD button in the Quick Launch tools, and you'll get this little page here. And the tool I really want to show you is this third one down that says Assess My Competence for Professional Registration. So if we click on that, we get each of the different levels. So the idea here is you can click on the level that you're particularly interested in going for. So in this case, we'll click CEng, and you get this matrix. Now, this is the clever bit. You've got each of those 17 competencies from the UK spec. And on the right-hand side, you've got a skill level of 0 to 4. So the idea is that zero is obviously no experience within that competence. Level 1 is trainee level or engineering technician. Level 2 is supervised or incorporated engineer level. And level 3 is practitioner or chartered engineer level. And then level 4 is expert. So we can start to map our strengths and our weaknesses against each of these competencies. And the way we do that is simply by clicking on the competence, and that'll bring us into this page. And you've got a detailed description of what is required for each of these competencies, each of these skill levels for this competence. So the idea is, give this a read through, click the one that you feel describes your experience the best. And then you've got an evidence box down here. So if you give us a paragraph or two, that will enable us to benchmark this for you. We can look at it and we will say, yeah, you're on the right lines, you're a 2, or you're underselling yourself a bit, we think you're a 3, or we might say, okay, you've just moved from a 1 to a 2, but this is what you need to be doing next time to get it up to a level 3. So that's really important to get that benchmarking and that guidance. And what's really handy here is that if you use these evidence boxes, you're effectively starting to write your application as you gain that experience. So it really does make the application process later on a bit easier. So once you've done that, your matrix is probably going to start to look something like this. So this individual is well on their way to being ready to apply for CEng. You can see they've got 3 kind of weaker areas that are holding them back. So what this individual would be encouraged to do is to speak to their mentor or their line manager. It might be in their appraisal, and say, I really want to kind of develop myself towards becoming a chartered engineer. I've got no experience in D2, present and discuss proposals. What opportunities are there, either in the business or possibly even outside the business, for me to gain this experience? And you can put together a plan, get that experience, and then come back here and log it, and that tick will move up 1 step closer to where it needs to be. And it's working in that targeted way that you can really progress towards becoming a chartered engineer much faster than just sitting back and allowing this experience to happen naturally. So this is a really effective tool, and if anybody out there is looking at applying, for example, for engineering technician or incorporated engineer status right now, I really encourage you, once you've achieved those, to get on this tool and start working to that next level up. It's also a great way to kind of demonstrate to your employer that you are taking responsibility for your development and for your career progression, and that's a very powerful message to send to your employer as well. So on to the main bit then, which is the actual application form for professional registration. So to start your application, you'll need to again go on these quick launch tools and click professional registration and click apply for CEng, ING Tech, etc. That's going to bring you out in the application form. It's probably worth highlighting that that IPD section isn't mandatory. You can skip straight past the IPD and go straight to the application form if you feel you've already got those competencies, or you might just want to give the IPD a kind of a look over, check what those competencies are, just to make sure you feel that you do have experience in all of them and there aren't any obvious gaps for you, but yet you can go straight through to this section. So as you can see here, there are 9 sections within the application form that you'll need to fill out. So I'm going to walk you through these step by step and give you some hints and tips on you know, best practice, what you know, what we like to see in the application form. One thing I will say is there is no kind of right or wrong here. I mean, people get really hung up on, do I put this in this section? Should I put this in? Should I not put it in? If in doubt, just do what feels best, what feels right. At the end of the day, all we're looking for is that you've demonstrated each and every one of those 17 competencies. It doesn't matter too much if it's in the wrong section, or you know, if you've put too much detail in. So don't worry, and don't forget those professional registration advisors are on hand to check what you've put and give guidance on whether it's going to be successful or not. So before you get started, I strongly recommend you find these guidance notes and download them and give them a good read through. They really do help you get started on your application form. Then you can jump right in. So section 1 is personal information, who you are, where you work, where you live. This is the easy bit. If you're struggling on this bit, then just give up, because it's going to get a lot harder. No, I'm just kidding. But a lot of this information will already be in your application form from your IET account if you're already a member. So just double check that it's correct. The last thing you want to do is put all this work in to gain your chartered engineer certificate and then find out when it finally arrives we've spelt your name wrong. So double check that that's all correct, and then you can move on to section 2, education. So this is where those exemplifying qualifications come into play. If you have them, then what we would like you to do is list them here, and they will automatically demonstrate that you have the underpinning knowledge and understanding required for the level that you're applying for. Now, That's the easy way. If you don't have them, and remember, this is the majority of people, what we need to do here is we ask you to give your highest relevant qualification. So you don't need to go all the way back through A levels and GCSEs or O levels or even your 100-meter swimming badge or any of that. We just need what's relevant. And then as we work through the rest of this process, you're going to be looking for opportunities to demonstrate that you have that level of engineering knowledge. So if it's CEng, it's master's degree level of knowledge. If it's IEng, it's bachelor's degree level of knowledge. You don't need the actual degree. You just need to demonstrate that you have that level of knowledge. So I'll show you how in just a minute. So the next section's employment, and this is the big one. This is where you're going to spend about 95% of your effort on this application form. And what we're looking for here is effectively like a CV, but in reverse with a little bit more detail. So the way to do this is, first, I recommend you build up the structure of that CV. So click Add Role, put all of the roles in that build up your career history. And one important thing to remember here is career gaps. If you've got any significant career gaps, you will need to click Add Role and put in an additional role that just explains what that career gap was. Now, doesn't matter, the career gap's not going to hurt your application form, but if you don't explain it, then your application will be rejected and we will ask for more information about what you were doing during this time. So please do kind of try and just cover off as much of it as possible. Once you've built up that structure, it's time to add in the detail. Now, there's a few things to remember as you go through this process. Firstly, you're going to start this by clicking the responsibilities button, and that's going to open up a text box where you can start to write in that detail. Now, remember, what you're effectively trying to do here is demonstrate that you have experience with each and every one of those 17 competencies. You only need to demonstrate them once, so you don't need to tell us about every single time you've presented and discussed a proposal, just the best example of that particular competence. So the other thing to keep in mind here is everything counts. From the beginning of your career to present day, it all counts. However, the last 5 years of your career are going to be what we are looking at the closest. So if we're going back 20 years, start off brief, elaborate on anything that you're particularly proud of or anything that particularly demonstrates a competence. And then as we start to zone in on the last 5 years, that's where you really want to kind of aim your focus. Now, the best way to do this is to try and keep your application form as short and concise as humanly possible. And the way to do that is to familiarize yourself with those 17 competencies and try and think of 2 or 3 projects that really represent the best examples of your engineering work, and make sure that those projects cover as many of those 17 competencies simultaneously as possible. So they're going to be the projects that are going to be the main focus of your application. So we want you to tell us the story of those projects. Tell us where they started, what you did, how you did it. Tell us what problems you came up against and how you overcame them. And as you're telling that story, you can literally tick off those competencies either, on the PDF of the UK spec that I sent out to you on the chat, or some people actually choose to put in brackets on their application form, competency B1, B2, etc., and reference them in that way. There's no right or wrong way to do this, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. But remember, you have to cover every single competency. So keep a record of which ones you've hit and which ones you haven't. Now, the last thing to be aware of as you're working through this employment section are those people who don't have the exemplifying qualifications and how you're going to demonstrate that you have that engineering knowledge that's required. The best way to do this is, as you're telling that story of that project, also talk about why you did what you did. So give us some of the basic engineering principles that explain the actions you took and the decisions you made, and that will demonstrate to us that you know and understand what you're doing as an engineer, and you're not just following direction from somebody above you. So that's the big section. It's a lot easier from here on. You've got apprenticeships and professional development schemes. So you either did one of these or you didn't. If you didn't, just leave it blank. And if you did, then just add in the information. It's pretty straightforward, and it will add that to your career history automatically. Then you've got achievements. So this is where you can start to go a bit further outside the box. Obviously, there are some achievements that carry a lot of weight. If you had any papers published, or if you have been involved in any patents, then yeah, absolutely put that in here. But you can also start to look at experience from outside of the engineering kind of context altogether, especially if you're looking at those softer skills competencies like communication, ethics, even commercial skills. You might say that you're maybe, you know, for one of the competencies, you don't manage budgets within your organization, but you might be a treasurer of a local organization outside of the workplace, and that helps you talk about managing budgets. You've also got training as well. And the key here with both of these areas are ask yourself the question, does this demonstrate a competence or not? If it does, put it in. If it doesn't, leave it out. Remember, you want your application to be as short as possible. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So section 8 is a nudge to get some feedback from a professional registration advisor. Remember, it's really important to find out whether this is potentially going to be successful or not before you submit it, and then that way you can, you know, fix any problems with your application before it's too late. So you can preview your application form at any time using this little link at the top, and you'll see it starts off as 4 pages, and it's going to grow as you add that information in. And I can tell you now, we get some rather large applications. The record breaker, the biggest one we've ever had, was over 1,000 pages long. And unfortunately for that individual, it was an automatic fail, because anything more than 12 pages is an automatic fail on the communication competency. So this is your chance to just count the pages, make sure you fit within the maximum. And I can tell you now, the average number of pages for successful CEng applications is 6 to 8 pages. So that's really where you want to be. And you can see here with all the boxes on the pages, you will fill 6 to 8 pages rather quickly. So the last thing you need to do is add some supporting documents. So we'll need an accountability diagram to show where your role fits within your business, and verified copies of any certificates, any educational certificates that you may have referenced. When we say verified, what we mean is, can you get your supporter to sign them? As simple as that. So all you do is click upload file, locate the file on your computer, and attach it to your application form. Then there's just a couple of things you need to do on these tabs along the top before you submit. So we ask you to tell us a little bit about your expertise, what sector you work within, and try and give us 3 specialisms. Now, this is what we use to select your interview panel later on for CEng and IEng. So choose carefully here. If you choose randomly, you're going to have a pretty strange interview. We also ask that you choose a preferred interview location. Now here I would ask you choose as you would do normally, but obviously we're conducting all the interviews online remotely at the minute. If anybody's concerned about waiting times for the registration process, I can tell you it's running pretty much at the same speed as it does normally prior to lockdown. And what we actually project is, as we are running more and more video interviews, we're going to speed up the process. So it might even be running faster than it does normally in the very near future. So the last thing you need to do is to get a supporter to verify your application form. So your supporter or supporters, because you can use up to 3, they need to be somebody who is senior to you within the engineering community. Now, they don't need to be professionally registered. They don't need to be a member of the IET. They don't even need to be employed by the same employer as yourself. The minimum requirement is that they are senior to you in some way within the engineering community. However, my recommendation here is that you find people who were close to the work that you've referenced in your application form, particularly those 2 or 3 best projects that you've referenced. And if your supporters are able to talk about the contributions you made on those projects, they will really add value to your application form. So all you need to do is click this little lock button that will lock up your application, and then click add supporter, put in their email address, and that will send them a link to your application form with guidance notes on what they need to do. You might want to pre-warn them because it takes about an hour to write a really good supporting reference. Once that's complete, then you just hit the submit button and you are done. That is the application form completed. Now, there are lots of places you can go to for support in this process, but I strongly recommend, especially in the current environment, just contact my team. Our details are at the end of this slide deck in just a couple of slides, and we will be happy to help you out. So I wanted to point out that we run live webinars every day. It says every Wednesday on there, but we've upped them to every day around some of the subjects we talked about today. So if you want to repeat, this session will be recorded. You can always come to our session, or if you've got colleagues that you think would benefit, please do forward them towards us and we'll be happy to support them. Once you've submitted your application, there is a fairly rigorous assessment process, as you can see here. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but what I will say is your application form is going to be reviewed by between 12 and 16 people, most of which are your peers, engineers from a similar background with similar experience. So part of that process for C-Engine Irons is an interview. Your interview at the minute will take place remotely via video link, and it's in front of 2 of your peers and a moderator, and you have to give a 10 to 15 minute presentation during that interview. Now, this is the bit that everybody dreads, but actually this is the easiest bit. We have a 93% success rate at interview stage. So if you've got to interview, you're pretty much there. All you need to do is just back up the things you've said in your application form and demonstrate that you have those communication skills to be able to talk around those projects. Now, they're going to ask you lots of questions. It's not that they're trying to catch you out. It's their job to draw out enough evidence to give you the green light. So if they're asking you questions, try and think, which competency is it that they're trying to get out of me? And you can try and focus in on any particular project you've worked on that might help demonstrate that. My advice here is take as much evidence as you can in with you to that. Have it on hand. You might not use it, but if it helps give you detail in your answers, then it's worth having it there. A great way to prepare for your interview is to actually watch one. So I've just shared a link on the chat box it literally is one of our interviews taking place. So that's a great way to kind of get yourself ready for this. So that's it from me. That was obviously a huge amount of information to give you over the course of the last 50 minutes. I can see there's been lots of questions come through the chat as we've gone through this all, but we've got a good 10, 15 minutes maybe of Q&A now. So we will do our best to answer some of these questions in the chat box. I know there's also a separate section specifically for questions. So if you want to put it in there, we'll look in both. Jeremy, I don't know if there's a particular format you want us to follow, or whether you just want us to pick them off one at a time.
Yes, thanks a lot for that, Adam. That's really good presentation and some really good information in that. We've had lots of great questions, which is good to see. Also, thank you, Fiona. Yeah, as you say, we've got a few minutes left. Either of you, if you'd like to pick any particular questions out, or talk about anything that's a little bit different or new that's come across from the questions, perhaps.
I can pick one out. I mean, I know, Fiona, you've been typing away furiously trying to answer these as we've gone through. But Jagrup Rai, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, I've missed this. I have a BN Johns. Do I need to do the IPD and competencies only to achieve CEng, or would I need an MSc? So, in answer to your question, many of our applicants, as we said a few times, don't have those exemplifying qualifications. So long as you can demonstrate that you've developed that additional knowledge during your time in industry that gets you up to master's degree level of knowledge, then you should be fine applying for CEng. Using the IPD tool is a great way to test yourself to see if you have But it really, it depends on the time that you've spent in industry. It normally takes 4 to 6 years as a minimum. I can see another question here from Richard Oliver, and that's a really interesting one. It seems like you're a contractor. You've been very kind of working independently, so it is difficult to get references for professional registration in that case, but absolutely you will be able to use clients if you can possibly find them, or even peers where you can find them. Remember, your supporter can make or break your application form, but the more evidence you have, the more experience you have, the less important that supporter becomes. So if you've got 10 years experience working on projects where you've really hit those competencies, then I would suggest that your supporter becomes less and less important to the process for somebody like yourself. Whereas if you were telling me you had 4 years experience, then we would really rely on those supporters to back up that in those 4 years you've been working at a level of responsibility that really does hit the level that we're looking for. Fiona, are there any questions that you saw come through that you think we need to kind of answer verbally? You're on mute, by the way. We can't unmute Fiona for some reason.
Oh, okay. Perhaps I can. Hold on. No, I can't unmute her at the moment. Sorry, I'm not sure why that is, but
no problem. Anyway, I'll try and have a scan through and see what 3 things. What was that? What 3 things could a business do to really support engineers in the registration process? I love that question. So number 1, and most importantly, it is to reach out to us, because all of the support mechanisms that we've talked about today are free. There's no costs involved. We would trip over ourselves to really engage with your employees and support them as best we can. So I would say number 1, it would be reach out to us either via email, contact us after this session and let us know that you want to talk, and we would be happy. I think in most cases, our regional managers would basically talk to you about the nature of your business, the size, what your engineers do, and then try and develop something that really fits for your business. So they'll happily give a presentation to your employees about everything we've kind of discussed today and more, and let them decide for themselves, is it for me? And it's our job to inspire them as well, and attract them towards becoming professionally registered. And then we've got these support mechanisms like the company-based registration schemes that we can run. On top of that as well, the IET really likes to form partnerships. So we have our corporate partners, our military partners, our academic partners, our enterprise partners, and forming a partnership is it has 2 big advantages to it. Number 1, we really like to create a more formal structure for supporting your staff in their professional development and in becoming professionally registered. But number 2 as well, it's about joining this partner community. We have events throughout the year where you're invited to mingle with our other partners, for either, all of them from military, academic, corporate, etc. And it's a platform on which we kind of say, these are some really great organizations that we want you all to be aware of, and we want you to network with each other. And over the years, we've seen some incredible business relationships form from that networking. So that's a great way, again, to encourage your staff to kind of show them what's going on out there within the engineering community, what other businesses are doing, and try and, replicate that within your own business. And even to share your best practice as well. But I can't stress this enough. We're here to help. We're a non-profit organization, so we're not here trying to sell to you. It's our goal to support you. So let's have a look. Josh Oldfield, how do we deal with some applicants applying with a lot of their content under NDA? That's a good question. It's something we come across very often as well. Many of our applicants work in very sensitive areas, the nuclear industry, the defense industry, etc. And obviously, you know, we don't want you to share any sensitive information, especially on Career Manager. If you do, we get raided by the military police and they take away our servers and things. So it's not happened for a while, but we don't want it to happen again. So what I would suggest here is the easiest way to get around this is you can talk around your experience in your application form without referring to anything specific. So you can talk very generally, just give us, I hate to use this word, but the general vibe of what it is that you were trying to do and how you did it without referring to, you know, specific materials, tools, people, places, that kind of thing. And you can normally demonstrate enough information without conflicting with security clearance or an NDA in this way. And what's really important is that you ask your PRA to kind of give you that feedback. Is this information going to be enough to demonstrate that competence? And if not, you know, what more can I do? And 99% of the time we can find a way around it. If we can't, then we can potentially look to use specific assessors, you know, who aren't going to conflict with the NDA. And we have assessors out there who are security cleared in the worst case scenario. So we can get you through the process one way or another. So don't panic. Okay, question from Samuel. If you had MRes and PhD, can I use my research workers experience and competency for knowledge I've acquired? The answer there is absolutely you can. A PhD is obviously overkill in terms of what we're looking for the minimum requirement for CEng. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think my internet just kind of had a little hiccup there. In case you didn't, what I was saying is a PhD is almost kind of like trying to kill a mosquito with a cannon. So I wouldn't have any concerns really in terms of the knowledge section. Yes, you can use your experience from within your PhD towards your application. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing screen because I think that will free up some of the bandwidth. Hopefully, if you've had plenty of time to get that membership, that telephone number and that email written down now. So if you need any further support. I think we're approaching 12 o'clock, so we are running over time. What I would say is, I did share my email earlier. If we haven't answered your question by now, please do send it to me via email direct or to the ProfReg info email that we put up on screen. I will do my best to get them answered today. If not, obviously it will be within the next kind of 48 hours, we will answer them. But
I think you might be able to hear me now. I think I've come back. Sorry, I think I've had a drop in my signal and it's not allowed me, but just to let everyone that's asking questions, I apologise if we've missed any. I know I've been trying to go through them as quickly as possible. I don't know if that's why I've kind of been logged out slightly. If there is anything, Adam and my own emails are on there. So if there's something specific you've not had, just fire us across an email and we'll get back to you. It's not a problem.
Absolutely. Right. I would like to say a massive thank you to Jeremy and his team for inviting us to present this today. And hopefully we'll do a couple more between now and the main event in November. And we are really hoping to be on stage somewhere in the event in November as well to do a similar talk. And I look forward to seeing you all there as well. So thank you, Jeremy, and thank you everybody for coming along.
Well, thank you, Adam, and thank you, Fiona. Sorry about the hiccups there, but we got there. Really informative, I think that presentation, and interesting. Great to talk about CPD accreditation. The presentation streams at Advanced Engineering this November, just to remind you, are CPD accredited. So it's another opportunity to perhaps get some more of those under your belts. Obviously, as I was saying earlier, I think we will have this on demand, recorded, and we'll be able to get you the links to that so that you can see it afterwards. Some really good and interesting questions, though. Thanks for that. We'll keep you informed as well on the series in terms of what we'll be covering going forward on these webinars from Advanced Engineering Talks. And we will, of course, keep you up to speed on the plans and developments for the live advanced engineering, which will be happening at the NEC this 4th and 5th of November. So I hope to be able to see you there. I think that covers the hour now. So thanks ever so much again to everybody at the IET and to both Fiona and Adam, and thank you all for joining us. It's been really seen some really good some good companies and some really interesting names and attendees today. So thanks very much. Stay safe until next time, and goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.